students, in this module I'll be talking about the development of the male gametophyte, and I'll talk about the first stage, which is basically happening before pollination in the pollen sac. So look, listen and learn. So let us see what is the development of the male gametophyte. Now look at this beautiful structure here. What is this structure? You got it. It is the pollen grain or the microspore. So you should know that the microspore or the pollen grain is the initial cell of the male gametophyte. Next, what you should know that the development of the male gametophyte is endosporic, which means it takes place within the pollen grain or within the microspore. And then you should also know that the process of development completes in two mitotic divisions. Right? And you must know that the entire process is completed in two stages, and it also is completed at two different places. And where are they? The first one, you should say, is before pollination in the pollen sac, and the second one is after pollination on the stigma. Right? So let us see in this module the development of the male gametophyte before pollination in the pollen sac. Right? What you see here once again is the pollen grain or the microspore. Now, when I say development in the pollen sac, I can also say in situ, right? So in situ, what you see is the protoplast of the pollen grain divides by mitosis. And you know, when mitosis takes place, you will end up with two cells, something like this. You have two cells here. One is that green colored cell, and the other one is a yellow colored cell. Yes? Now this small cell is called as the generative cell. The generative cell basically has smaller size. Then the generative cell has a large nucleus. The generative cell has thin cytoplasm. It has got no reserve food and also lacks a vacuole. The larger cell here is called as the vegetative cell. The vegetative cell is also called as the tube cell. Now what you should know about vegetative cell, you should know that it is the larger cell which also has a nucleus, which has a dense cytoplasm, it has reserve food, and it also basically has a large vacuole which I have not shown here. Is that okay? Moving on. Now this particular pollen is now called as a two-celled pollen grain. Now what you see here is the generative cell, right, which is right here. Because it lacks a definite cell wall, it will now start floating and is freely suspended in the vegetative cell. Is that okay? And that's why it is called as a two-celled pollen grain, because there are two cells in it. Yes? Now in most angiosperms, the pollen grains are released at the two-cell stage. And such a pollen which has got two cells is also called as a young or a partially developed male gametophyte. Right? The second stage is still remaining. Right? In some cases, what can happen that a two-cell pollen, right, where there's a generative cell as well as a vegetative cell, here the generative cell will divide again and produce two male gametes. So now if you count, there are two male gametes, that is two cell, and one vegetative cell, that is three celled, and such pollen is now called as a three-celled pollen. Now this may happen only in few cases while the pollen is still in the embryo sac. But in most cases, you must remember the pollen will be released at the two-cell stage. Is that okay? Now that cell, what you see inside, is not really a cell. It is actually the tube nucleus, the orange one right here. Right? So you basically see here are the three cells, two male gametes and one vegetative cell with its tube nucleus, right? So in this module, I've talked about the development of the male gametophyte, and I've also thrown light of the development of the male gametophyte before pollination in the pollen sac. In the next module, I will continue with the development of male gametophyte, but I'll be talking about the development after pollination on the stigma. Till then, thank you and take care.